TOMz.
And namhlanje is the day, and it can only mean one thing.
And by now, I really shouldn't be telling you this, what that one thing is, because you should know by now what it is. It's your MC, SABC, one Mzansi for sure.
I mean, but yes, let's just jog with their memories, just a tad thing.
And the lady right here is Ubongisipo.
You guys are chilling at home. You're watching the home of ultimate entertainment, and yes,
and more specifically, habitats, their natural homes.
Today's show will be packed full of entertainment that you've come to know and love. Check out
What is a habitat and how do animals live together in the wild? Join the guys as they visit a wetland to learn more about this unique habitat and see how you and I can live in harmony with wildlife in the city. Check out some amazing, awesome apps for your mobile device and get some inspirational words of advice from the guests on today's show. Let's go.
Nyazi, TOMz has a certain flow of doing things. We don't just dish out entertainment without engaging with you.
So good, man. Before we get into the meat and over it, we want to know what the man in the street thinks about today's topic.
Sweet. Fresh 100. Fresh 100.
What's your name?
Saki.
Okay, Saki, what is habitat?
Habitat?
Yeah.
I think habitat is where animals stay. Yeah.
Nest. Lapho uyabona lapho into ihlala khona.
Yeah.
Njengawe your habitat is your house.
Okay.
Kulahlala uma inyosi khona.
Okay.
Habitats are like places where like animals live and like where you animals adapt their places to live.
Okay, cool. Can you tell me the different types of habitats that we find in nature?
Well, kind of like a field for where animals live, like water where like fish live and stuff like that.
Okay.
Nature. Yeah. The jungle.
Okay.
Pets.
Okay.
Can live.
Nest angijilile.
Yini enye futhi?
Ipube silizalaphi.
Le inyosi sihlala in a hive angisho. Is it like you can name others girls can I?
Nah, nest or something like
that. Okay, so bangithi urban conservation ngisho kuthini?
Urban conservation. Yo, urban conservation. Yeah, they don't know, hey.
Yo.
Yo.
has been dubbed the world's largest man-made forest.
Don't you think that is just amazing? I get the city has just over 6 million spread out all across it.
And again, the nice thing about that is that trees give us life by giving off oxygen.
But the relationship is not a one-sided one. As abantu we breathe carbon dioxide, plants like trees actually use the carbon from our breaths.
And such relationships are actually what keeps some habitats alive and functioning.
Then check this out.
Simply put, a habitat is a natural home of any organism. These can be animals, plants, or even unicellular organisms. Habitats form part of ecosystems, which are very interesting systems where various systems of organisms interact and go about doing what they are instinctively programmed to do, ignorant to the fact that they are actually keeping the ecosystem alive. Now, keeping in mind that the natural world is all about survival and making sure that one eats but is not eaten, ostriches and zebras share a habitat for this very purpose. Zebras are not only quite easy to spot in the wild, but they also have really bad eyesight too. But luckily for them though, they have a good sense of smell and hearing, unlike an ostrich which basically only has good eyesight. Now, these two species work together for the simple purpose of survival.
Our wetlands are one of those natural animal habitats that are really interesting.
Now, they have their own way of functioning there. So one animal will do a certain thing, not knowing that that one action benefits the rest of the community. Now, the variety of animals you find is very interesting too, hey?
I hope Nina Makaya are ready to share your enthusiasm about wetlands. But if our phone is maybe this will change your mind.
Your Fresh Boy still on a mission, but fair to sakubanga topic yet and I'm trying to my habitats. Also about urban conservation, good to yini. Endangered wildlife trust about what is that and how does it all work together? You and me need to learn about it. Let's go. Hi everybody, how are you doing?
Hi, good and you?
I'm Fresh. Welcome to TOMz.
Thanks for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself to our viewers and let us know what do you do and where we are?
Sure. My name's Emily Taylor. I work for the Endangered Wildlife Trust's Urban Conservation Project. We look at conserving species in the urban areas, and we also manage this reserve, Modderfontein Reserve.
Okay, can you please let us know what is urban conservation?
Well, it's basically the conservation of urban species that have adapted to living in urban areas, but it's also about creating a better relationship between people and wildlife in urban areas.
Okay, so tell me about the species that you find in urban areas.
You'd be surprised at the wildlife that's in Joburg, from bats that live in our gardens and help control our mosquito problems, and then a lot of birds. You see barbets and even eagles flying overhead in Johannesburg. And then you get the most surprising things. You get a lot of hedgehogs in Johannesburg gardens. Jennets have been seen increasingly in areas such as Parkview and Melville. But then you get a large spectrum of animals on the outskirts as well. Porcupines, jackals, all sorts of things.
Okay, so tell me, how have the animal species adapted to like urban areas?
Well, you'll notice that a lot of things like your birds and your bats, which you see more often, have become less fearful of human activity. It's easier for them to handle noise and activity and things like that. So they've developed mechanisms, and they start building their own habitats under roofs, inside ceilings, things like that. I mean, owls have adapted to feed on the rodents in urban areas. Just in general, animals, I think, have learned to eat different foods in the urban areas in order to survive. Some, unfortunately, go into the garbage, but there are many different mechanisms that they've acquired.
Okay, so what do you guys have here?
Well, we do have some antelope species. We have zebra and wildebeest, hartebeest, springbok and blesbok.
Okay.
But our main draw card is our birds.
Okay.
We actually currently have a breeding pair of blue cranes, which are an endangered species and one that the Endangered Wildlife Trust works on quite a lot. And then we have our long-crested eagles, which don't occur very often in this area at all, so we're very privileged to have them here. And then we've got a wonderful pair of breeding fish eagles as well that draw a lot of people here.
You're close to the city, you're not in the wild. How do you make the animals feel comfortable and make them feel like they're in the wild?
We've done a lot of rehabilitation of the area. And we also like to create habitats where we can. For example, the island in the middle of the dam. It's a man-made island that the Ecological Institute of Education is experimenting on. And that creates a wetland habitat for a lot of water birds. And it also helps to clean the water so that animals actually want to come here, because it's sometimes quite polluted from upstream factories. So these islands help to filtrate the water and make it more hospitable.
Okay, so tell me, how does the environment sustain the wildlife here?
Well, you know, it's not a closed system. So it joins up to green corridors throughout the city, which is really wonderful, and that's what we're trying to maintain. And so the fish eagles, you know, they do feed here, and the otters come through and feed here. But I mean, it's still possible for fish to get in through the upstream rivers and for the eagles to go elsewhere if they run out of food here. So it's all kind of one open system throughout the city.
What is a green corridor?
It's basically green areas that allow for animals to move between places like this, so that, you know, populations of animals become isolated, and then they can't breed with each other. So they need to move in order to, you know, better their own survival skills.
So tell me, do you have any control mechanism that you have here in the wildlife?
Yeah, well, we do try and keep things as natural as possible. And animals generally regulate their own population sizes. So in an area, they will know how much they need to survive, and therefore they won't reproduce if there's not enough food to go around. We just try and control the habitat itself rather than the animals.
It makes sense why we were so enthusiastic about wetlands earlier.
And there's so much of such coming your way. So so
Meet up with the guys at the Endangered Wildlife Trust and learn all about urban conservation. How has urbanization affected the natural world, and how can we fix it? All this and more after the break.
TOMz.
Sweet Mzansi, and we are still edutainng Mzansi because that's what we do best.
It's your boy Sia and your girl Ubongisipho.
Njalo kanye on the freshest sci-tech show in the land of Mzansi. Teenagers on a mission getting up with SABC. What? Mzansi for sure.
If you've been watching from the beginning of the show, then what
happens? Now let's just jog their memories up a bit.
Well, again, TOMz has all been about habitats, the homes of the natural world.
And give it about how different animals and plant species work together for survival. We also got to understand how wetlands actually work.
Another thing, as I showed earlier on, is how Johannesburg is basically a man-made forest. What again is how has the natural urban and rather the urban worlds come together?
Well, urban conservation is actually a big part of conservation. There's no denying that even though we live in an urban life, we really need the natural world too.
Fresh Boy is still on a mission bafethu saqhubeka ngetopic namhlanje habitats or touchdown east side of Johannesburg eBlesbok spread. So basitshela abaqeqeshi basitshela kabanzi ukuthi ama-wetlands abaluleke kangakanani for our environment. It's me and you in this mission, baby boy. Let's get it. Sesiphulumela abaqeqeshi abasichazela kabanzi ukuthi what are wetlands, khuluma ngama-habitats namhlanje. Chris, welcome to TOMz.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, and how are you?
Good, good. My name is Caddy. To our viewers at home, I'm going to introduce us. What is your profession?
My name is Chris Mtombeni. I work for the city of Ekurhuleni.
Yes.
As an environmental officer. Responsible for water bodies, wetlands, dams, lakes, and all your natural water bodies.
Wetlands, what are wetlands?
Wetlands, it's what we're standing at. What you're looking at, that's actually a wetland, an area which is wet throughout the year.
Yes.
Whether it's rainy season or not, but it's forever wet.
Okay, so when wetlands, how are they established?
Well, there's two ways. There's natural wetlands and there's man-made wetlands, where back in the days where there was no drainage system, the water will take the easiest route and obviously they will run on that route on a daily basis up until they reach a soft spot. That's of Yakona's crack to the crust of the surface and reach the water table, and the wetland is established.
So what's the importance of wetlands?
One will be obviously the visual one. If you look on the wetland, you will see some gulls, which are very pretty birds that you can look at. So for pastime, for bird watchers and bird viewers, bird photographers and all that, this is a perfect place for them. Other than that, wetlands will be used for agricultural purposes. Farmers are still able to extract water from the wetlands to water their crops, and their livestock depends on the wetlands to get some water to drink.
So what is the relationship between lama species lawa plomala and habitats?
Like everywhere else, wetland, it's just like a community. So yes, there is a food chain happening where one animal will feed on the other will feed on the other one, and all that, you know. So that's how the community is in the water body.
Okay, so Chris, I'm threats to wetland.
All these social activities that are taking place around the wetlands, they're posing different threats into the wetland. Number one, if you look at the guys on the other side, obviously they will eat whatever, enjoy their thing while driving, throw out their papers through the windows and everything, ends up on the storm water, which leads into the wetlands. On the other hand, there is a challenge with sewer lines and all that, and every now and then you find that Ugutiguna blockages which end up into the wetland. Spillages, spillages are mine, where mine have pipers or besta. Abozamazama, they break the blinds and all that. They say amanzi wakhona ayaspila into the wetland.
So ama species it's not, it doesn't look like it's a very clean place.
Well, there's a number of species like otters, especially on this one we've got the Cape clawless otter, we've got catfish, we've got a number of species, over 180 bird species. We've got mongoose, we've got all sorts of animals that are depending on this wetland.
Okay. So Chris, since you mentioned the challenges lama species lawa adapt to the environment.
Animals are good indicators. They are indicators because they are our number one indicators of what state ama wetlands wethu akuyo. If there is excessive pollution, sizobona ngama-fish, ama-crabs, and all your sensitive species will start dying, and then we know that wetland needs attention.
So Ngitshele-ke, what are you guys doing as the city of Ekurhuleni to combat this situation?
We've got a lot of educational activities that we do around the wetlands.
Okay.
We've got the Environmental Education Center. The function of that is to educate people about the importance and how to not pollute or how to share the environment with such animals. So the more people get to understand and the more they start learning more about the wetlands, start protecting these wetlands, the more they start conserving it, and the better water quality we get as an end result. But as a city, we're doing all our best to deal with pollution. When we spot it at the first hand, we do whatever it takes that we rectify the situation.
Now, urbanization has had quite a big impact on the natural world. Some of the major ways that urbanization has affected the natural world is by either completely taking over habitats or altering the natural habitats of species. For instance, some habitats have had reduced water flow and quality through over-extraction and damming. Some species, particularly birds, fall victim to intentional and accidental poisoning. Now, all these problems have contributed towards our very own national bird, the blue crane, being classified as a vulnerable species. Now, that our very own national bird is classified as a vulnerable species.
But it does not have to end very badly for the other species as well. We just need to make an active effort to keep these animals alive, healthy and happy.
Inshallah, when you're already doing that, then we would love to learn more about that. So now Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and let's encourage each other to preserve nature.
For now, though, we go to a quick commercial break.
We go back in time about the evolution of habitat conservation. We get some useful habitat conservation apps, and we get some cool advice from Inga Papers at Namshanj. Right after this.
TOMz.
Again, you are still tuning to the home of science and tech edutainment, Lana Mzansi.
The one and only TOMz, SABC, what Zansi for sure.
Now, so let's cut about all these habitats and the various efforts that people have been making to preserve them.
Inshallah, but have you asked yourself when exactly did we realize that we actually need to start preserving nature?
And how exactly we got to the point where we all needed to actively start preserving nature?
Inshallah, I think there is only one way to answer such questions.
And that is by backtracking a few centuries and finding out the answers.
Up until the colonial period in Mzansi, wildlife was quite abundant, as so as we were its habitants. People would live in harmony with nature because man needed the natural world in order to survive. It was only after colonization that natural resources were being exploited and natural habitats were being threatened. Luckily though, the powers that be of that time realized the importance of conservation and set up nature reserves. Now as society progressed, more natural habitats were turned into urban areas. Now there is significantly much less natural habitats for wildlife to occupy. For those reasons, organizations like the Endangered Wildlife Trust feel the need to educate you and I on how we can live together with certain wildlife in our urban environments.
Now, in order to be able to conserve natural habitats, one has to first understand them.
There's no denying that in nature conservation and anything else, actually knowledge is truly power.
Power is knowledge. We are urban children and we grew up in this high-tech world, and the internet is basically what we need now. So we don't know anything about nature, basically, or we don't know much.
These two completely must separate. We as young people need to use things like the internet and our smartphones for the benefits of all natural habitats.
You guys need to check out the Africa Live app. The app it features a live map of gaming sightings in various safari areas. This one-of-a-kind app is a must-have for everyone interested in wildlife conservation research. And if you want to be more involved, get yourself the David Sheldrake Wildlife Trust app. The app allows you to foster an orphaned elephant and keep track of the orphan. And apart from that, the app allows you to keep up to date on the work you've done by David Sheldrake Wildlife Trust. You need to get it.
So when and you've been bitten by the habitat conservation bug.
Now how to save the homes of animals like bugs and birds, and not forgetting meat, because
what career would allow you to do this?
At the top of my head, the best career to choose would be a career in ecology. An ecologist studies the interaction between living things and their environment. So as an ecologist, you would be required to undertake environmental studies and do laboratory tests of animals and plants. To become an ecologist, you would need to study a Bachelor of Science degree, which requires you to study biology, physical science, and mathematics, and have a minimum average of 65%.
So go out there, take the advice, and achieve your dreams.
Now let's go get some words of advice from them, just to give you even more inspiration. Why you get to go out there and do it?
Getting into nature conservation is the best way to ensure the future of our planet. And to do that, you've got to study your biology and your science, go to university, do BSc or study nature conservation, and you can do really cool things with it. You can go be a game ranger, or you can work in an NGO like Endangered Wildlife Trust and make a difference with research.
If you want to study to be an environmentalist, there is more than one field you can look at: environmental science, nature conservation, social sciences. There is hundreds of them available out there. But yeah, you have to be passionate about it. I'm not an environmentalist by profession, but by passion. You know, I'm an environmentalist. I stop at people throwing stuff outside my car window and all that. Tell them I can clean my car, but I can't clean the world. So if you want to be one, you need to be passionate about it. Go for it, and we're very short of guys in this field.
Social sessions
I did not know that you could use alcohol, methanol, or ethanol reacted with waste oil to form biodiesel.
Who was that amazing young lady that you guys featured on the show today? The amazing young lady that we featured on that show, Throwback TOMz, was also Sticky Jakal, who's actually not in South Africa. She is because she's flourishing levels.
www.facebook.com/TOMZ at TOMZ_SABC_1
at TOMz_SABC1. With that said, keep tweeting.
And just like that, let's figure out to
that you guys enjoyed it as much as we did.
Please let us know on Facebook at TOMZ. On Twitter, we are simply TOMZ_SABC_1. Now, on Instagram, let's at TOMZ_SABC1.
Make sure you know we love hearing from you guys. And join us again next time for another fresh episode of TOMZ.
See you next time.
Next time on TOMZ,
planning.
Behind the Pambili app.
Learn all about town planning.
Excited yet? Then when I TOMZ SABC1 Zanzi for sure.